You're listening to the Spirit Podcast.
Hey everyone, back here. And before we dive into this incredible conversation with our amazing guest today, I wanted to give you a little heads up about something. Now, if you've been with us for a while, you know that when we talk about the paranormal, the metaphysical, or anything beyond the veil, strange things tend to happen. And this time, it was a battle. From the moment we hit record, we were up against some of the worst internet issues, dropouts, and straight up interference I've ever experienced during an interview. No matter what we tried, reconnecting, switching devices, it was like something just did not want this conversation to happen. This, of course, all went down while Mercury was in retrograde and during a powerful new moon. For those of you who might not be familiar, Mercury retrograde is infamous for messing with communication, technology, and travel. It's a time when emails go missing, devices crash, and apparently podcast interviews turn into full-blown ghost hunts for a stable connection. Pair that with the new moon, when the energy is shifting, emotions are heightened, and the veil between worlds is a little thinner. And, well, you get exactly what happened here. Despite all the tech chaos, we push through, and honestly, I think it only adds to the energy of this episode. So I appreciate you sticking with us through some of the rougher audio moments because what Jasmine shares is absolutely worth it. Now let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Spirit Podcast. I'm Beck, your host, and joining me, as always, is my fabulous co-host, Rachel.
Welcome, everyone.
Today, we have a truly fascinating guest with us. Is it Jasmine Bootle?
Yeah, you actually said it correctly. My last name's hard to say, so usually people don't say it right. So yes, it is.
Okay.
Good job, Beck.
Thanks, Jasmine Bootle. Jasmine is a divination specialist with over 20 years of experience in psychic readings, tarot, numerology, shadow work, and her groundbreaking practice, Induced Death Communication. She's taught classes, spoken at universities, and worked at holistic retreats. So we're in for an enlightening conversation. Jasmine, welcome to the show. It is so wonderful to have you here.
Thank you very much for having me as well.
Let's start by diving into your journey. Can you share with us how you first got into divination and what drew you to this path?
So as a kid, we would go down to the public library because it was really close to the school. And I would find books about this kind of stuff very young and read them. I was just really drawn to them, right? It was just something that innately I was drawn to. And the teachers would have to take them away from me. But my mother knew that I was very interested and she didn't like candles. So she bought me tarot cards at around 13 because she didn't want me trying to do like candle magic or something in the house. So
Right.
she thought, maybe the tarot cards would distract me from doing silly things. And so then I started doing the tarot cards. But the book that came with the tarot cards also taught palmistry and numerology. So I kind of got a good bang for my buck with the book. So I learned how to do all this at around 13 and then just practiced from there. A lot of the times I would do friends readings or I became obsessed at one point of reading my cards every day before I went to school. But then it would just set the tone every single day. And there's no surprise there. You're not really like truly experiencing life. You're always knowing what's going to happen or just speculating, I suppose. So there's no mystery there. So I had to stop doing it because it was just like obsessive.
13 is really young to get right into that. That's kind of cool.
Impressive.
Now, you've developed something truly unique with your induced death communication. Can you tell us more about it and how it differs from traditional mediumship?
Okay, so I developed it because today's actually the 7th year of my dad's passing. So he's the reason I created it. So I would mention that is the exact day of it. Some things happened around his passing, answers needed. So I seen mediums to see if they could get the answers from my father about what I needed to know so desperately. And they couldn't do it. They could answer certain things, but they just could never answer the question that I needed answered. I don't know why. I was watching a paranormal show and I seen them using the pendulum to ask if there was spirits in the house. So I took that idea of how they were using the pendulum and I used it to ask if my father was here and willing to talk to me. And then I used the pendulum to ask him the yes or no questions. And then on top of that, I used the tarot cards to ask him for guidance or for messages. And I do the same for other people that have their own questions. If it's one on one, they can hold the pendulum and shuffle the cards themselves. If it's virtual, I do it for them. Or if there's somebody who's really emotional, I'll just teach them how to do it so that they can do it privately, so that they can have that healing on their own, I guess you could say, so that they're not feeling uncomfortable with somebody they don't know very well.
Do you think that the people that you went to, the mediums, that they just couldn't tap in or the information was being withheld from you? And did you get your answers when you did it yourself specifically?
I did get the answers, and I did it myself specifically. I think because the questions were so specific that it was hard for the mediums to get that specific of an answer. It was like a deeper question than, are you okay? Are you with me? Questions that had to do with him signing paperwork a week before he passed away. And did he truly understand and mean to sign that paperwork, or was he not understanding the paperwork? So they had a hard time getting that exact answer, I suppose.
It's fascinating, the induced death communication. So when you have your client doing this process themselves, it seems like it's a very therapeutic thing to do for them, like a process. Do you feel as if you are helping them also open up to their natural abilities? And if you believe that we all have this divine ability and we just need that person to really open our eyes to it, do you feel like that's something that you help with your clients?
I do, especially when I read their tarot cards, actually, because some of the things they say that they feel intuitively come up within the tarot cards and will say, like, yes, your intuition was correct. And then that really helps them key into their own spiritual aspects or gifts or whatever they have. And with the induced death communication, they're just focused on the grief in that aspect. But when I do tarot readings or palm readings or that kind of stuff, it really opens people up because they maybe haven't had it done before or maybe didn't understand it. And then when they're talking about it, they kind of click in and they feel like, oh, I've had this experience myself, or I have noticed signs around me telling me to go in this path or things like that. And they start to open their own eyes to their own intuitions.
Are there any memorable experiences or stories from these sessions that deeply impacted you or your clients?
From the death induced ones, we're able to kind of pinpoint this lady. Her father had something happen, but they lived in Botswana and they didn't have the technology to tell what exactly happened. He had something happen in his brain, but they weren't sure if it was a tumor or a blood clot or an aneurysm or exactly what it was. And through doing the communication, it brought her profound healing just knowing what it was. Like, I guess maybe it does bring out people's intuitive side because she intuitively had thought the same thing, but she told me that afterwards. We didn't talk about it at first. After we talked about it, she said that she had felt that that's what it was. So I guess maybe it does bring out that side of people, but she was definitely a very memorable client because she really got the answers that she was really desperately looking for. Nothing scary's happened to me while I've done this. I set up protection things in that sense. So I haven't had any like scary instances. I've had clients come back and tell me that what I had read them came true and stuff like that, which is memorable, obviously. I've gotten a lot of people be very thankful when I do the death induced communication. They all usually react the same kind of way. I do actually have one that's memorable now that I think about it.
Okay.
She became obsessed with asking the same question every single day, about 30 times a day. I would have to tell her we have to stop, and she would find me on every single platform that she possibly could to continuously ask me the same question that I've already told her the answer to. She had this massive obsession with just having to ask the same question, hoping that the answer would change, but it never would. And it was just, again, I'm talking, this went up for 3 months where she would find a way to contact me almost 30 times a day. It took up a lot of my time just trying to be polite, because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings or anything like that. But at the same time, how many times can I tell you the same answer? And how many times can I guide you in the right direction? And how many times can I say we can't continue if this is how, if it's just going to be the same thing all the time? Because obviously it's not really helping anybody. It's kind of feeding into the obsession, right?
Right.
So she was memorable. I won't say her name or anything, but she definitely had an addiction to psychics, I guess you could say.
There's a bunch of them
Mhm.
actually that do that. It's difficult because you don't want to turn them away. You want to have compassion and empathy, but at the same time, you have to set these boundaries because they'll just keep coming back and coming back. I think you need to give things time to come into place and to process everything. But people, they do become obsessive, almost like reverse psychic vampires. Like they're the vampires
Right.
coming after the psychic.
And sometimes they just want you to tell them to do too much. They want too much out of you sometimes. And you're like, no, that's for you to make that decision, not me.
Yeah.
They definitely kind of want, like, every day kind of explain to them, or like you said, it's for you to decide. There is free will. So even
Right.
if I do a tarot reading, you could be going to the driver's license place and you could see a different person and they could tell you no, but what I read yes, because I'm like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the free will of the person that's giving you the answer, I guess you could say, right? So basically, in a tarot reading, it would tell you, I don't know, but that isn't the best answer to give somebody or anything. But I'm just saying, because of free will, it really affects things too. And that plays into, like, sometimes people that have the obsession because, like you said, they would rather you just tell them every little thing so that they don't have to worry themselves, I suppose.
When you put the message out, the free will, people don't understand that. It does come into play. You could go left instead of right that day. And that can change your whole unfolding in front of you. And they blame the psychic or the mystic or whoever told me this, but you actually changed your path, your trajectory. Did that actually help you in learning boundaries too with people because of this experience?
Yeah, because she was one of my earlier clients. And also with the deck, like I'll explain, because of the free will thing we were talking about, the first 22 of the deck are the major arcana, and they're about life lessons. So they aren't as affected by free will, where the rest of the deck, like the swords, the wands, the cups, and the pentacles, they are all everyday cards that are affected by free will. You can change upright and upside down very easily by somebody's free will. So that's kind of how the deck is set up. So when you're reading it, the ones that are like the everyday cards, it's very easy for them to change by your choices. But yeah, she was the only person that I ever really had become that way. So I was lucky, I guess, in that sense, because I think, like you said, I learned how to put up boundaries pretty quickly, right? And kind of be like, I have 2 children. I do this for other people as well. We do time slots now. I had a mentor give me some advice about it. Somebody that did a lot of tarot reading and stuff like that. And she kind of gave me advice on how to set boundaries so that I don't become so overwhelmed. And I am a yes person, so it's hard for me to say no. So I had somebody kind of help guide me in how to do that.
Oh, that's really good. Now, growing up in a gypsy family, how did your cultural background shape your spiritual gifts and your connection to divination?
So my grandmother was from Ireland. She was an Irish gypsy. And so my mother was, and I was, but my grandfather remarried and said that my grandmother had passed away, which she did not. But that's another day, another story, whatever. So my mother and I were different. The rest of the family was very German. So it was kind of like we were divided because her and I, like, she has her own things that happen. She'll drink to turn it off, which is kind of sad, but I just think she doesn't want to deal with it. And at this point in her life, with all the things she's been through, but she was always for learning about it. She did her own kind of thing. She was more into like, not necessarily spell work, but she worked with electricity. It's hard to explain. Growing up in a house that's cultural like that, it's something that's talked about. So for me to go find those books at that age, it's just because it had been talked about in the home. That's why I had the interest in it, because my mother would do certain things with her friend. So like I picked up on that and I wanted to do it myself, but I just went in a different path of divination than she did, I suppose. She doesn't do the tarot cards or the pendulum, but she'll do like the numerology aspect, or she likes to do manifestation with her weird electricity things she does. I don't know. It's hard to
I want to
explain,
know
right?
about this electricity. I'm very curious.
Her personal frequency, she can like flicker the lights and stuff. So I feel like when she tries to manifest something, she's very able to do it. This woman has like the luck of, she'll have really bad luck and then all of a sudden get saved in like the best way possible at the last minute, and you never understand. There's just something about her. And my grandmother, who was the original gypsy, she did her own thing, and she liked to use her abilities for love, like love things. So she would use them for charm, like charming people. She was more of the negative side of gypsy. So yeah,
More of a
it's a long
negative?
story.
This typical, what you would think of as the gypsy, the swindling gypsy?
Yeah. Yeah, she was that to a T. That's why we were told she had passed, because
Oh,
I think my grandfather didn't want my mother to have to suffer through that. So obviously we found out she didn't, but like I said, that's a long story. But my mom and I always both practiced in our own ways and still kind of try to keep like traditions of like some of the celebrations that they have. St. Bridget's Day is coming up soon too, and in bulk it starts on the 2nd of February. Like some of the Irish gypsy, and they're also pagan, a lot of them as well, and Wiccan holidays. They're all kind of connected, like the Celtic and the pagan and the Wiccan holidays on their calendar are kind of connected just because of the belief systems we all have.
sounds like your mom was a slider. There's a
Oh
name
yeah,
for it.
I think that's the problem. She learned it from her mother. And then I'm the one that lived with my father, so I wasn't as involved in all that kind of stuff because my parents separated. I lived with my dad. And so basically, like I said, I picked up on that stuff young, but then they separated after that. So I didn't get into the negative stuff. I probably was the one that got taken advantage of more
Oh,
than anything.
well, I'm glad you didn't get into the negative stuff.
I'm afraid to. I have too bad superstition. I'm so superstitious that I just don't want to play with fire.
And when you practice, have you been called by a certain deity, or do you work with a particular deity?
I times will work with hectate, but I try to be more ancestral about it. Like my little altar that I have is more ancestral than anything else. I believe our ancestors are who we are, and they're behind us helping guide us, right? But I have at times used hectate. Other than that, I haven't really called upon any other deity. I've just used hectate a few times in some very hard days, you know?
I want to bring us back to the divination practices for our listeners who may be completely new to the concept. How would you describe divination and its purpose?
Well, divination, I think, is its purpose is to find answers. And divination itself has a huge blank, like it mediums, psychics, runes, tarot, pendulum, tea leaf reading, chemistry, There's so much to it. Anything that is fortune telling, like that can tell the future or can connect with spirits, anything like that, it's all kind of blanketed under divination. That's why I use that word for what I do, because then you'd have to explain it
Every
all
single
3 or 4.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you Google the word itself, it's not the occult because it's not about casting spells. It's about like psychics, and fortune telling, and connecting with spirits. It's not spell casting or anything like that. It's more of connecting and finding answers.
Tarot, astrology, and numerology, they often intertwine in fascinating
Yes, they
ways.
do.
Can you explain how these practices might complement each other?
There's a thing you can do with the major arcana where you use the person's birthday. You don't need the year because you use the current year. And then you use numerology to figure out what card correlates with their year. So last year, my card was justice. And I had gone through a car accident where I had to deal with some things in court and stuff like that. So it really did play into the theme of my life because I was going to court and dealing with things that have to do with justice. So basically, the card that you would receive when I add up the numbers, I'm able to figure out what card it is. So say you had the Wheel of Fortune, it'd mean that you'd have like a really lucky year and things would go really well for you and be like one of the better years of your life. So that's something I can do with it. Each card actually relates to an astrology sign in the major arcana and the minor arcana. Each suit represents a certain astrological sign as well. So if you're talking about a person, it's easier to maybe figure out which person it is if it's somebody doing something negative to you by knowing their zodiac sign or their personality trait that fit into the zodiac sign would help you understand if it's that person or if you're that person.
Fascinating. Have you ever done any past life regression to know what you were in your past lives that brought you into this type of divination in this lifetime?
I've had one past life regression session, and basically they said that I was a Syrian star seed that had come to Earth for service reasons. In my past life, I've been a servant and helped people in the way of serving, working as like a maid, I suppose, or an assistant or something like that. So I've always been of service to people within my past lives, is what I've been told. And before I did this, I was in the hospitality industry, and every job you could think of in the hospitality industry. So I think a general theme of my soul to want to help people. And I think I was guided into this life, learning from the past lives how to serve people in a better way, like a more positive way.
Psychic readings are a cornerstone of your work. How do they typically work, and what can someone expect from a session with you?
So for a psychic reading, I need to pick up on your energy. So I will do like a quick general tarot reading to begin with, just to pick up on your energy. And once I do, what that would look like would be I can picture things a lot of the time, or I just know things. So from the tarot reading, I just do it to pick up on their energy, or even just a pendulum reading, just something to grab their energy. If it's virtual, if I'm with them in person, it's a lot easier. So I'll be able to tell them things that I just already know is going to happen. I let them know those things. If they have questions, I will answer them to the best of my ability, or I will like tell them what I can see or see in the future and stuff like that. And basically I tell them what I can see and what I know. And I ask them if they have any questions about that. And if that resonates, obviously. And then from there, I see if they have anything else that they might want to know or might want to.
Hey, Spirit Seekers, enjoying the show? Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe to the Spirit. Leave us a review on Apple or Spotify and share the love. We drop a new video every week on our YouTube channel covering paranormal, conspiracy, high strangeness, and more. Have questions or want to share your own spooky story? Drop us a line at tothespiritpod@gmail.com. Stay spirited.
Hello.
Hi. We decided it's a new moon and a Mercury in retrograde.
Oh, of course. Well, my computer's not letting me do a program for school either.
Oh.
And my teacher thought that I was just being computer illiterate, but she went through it with me, couldn't do it. The IT can't set it up. I have to drop the class because I can't get into the program.
For everyone that's listening, we're having electronic issues if you haven't figured that out by now. So we switched over to the phone. I apologize for the sound difference, but we want to keep it going. Intuition seems to play a key role in divination. Is it something anyone can develop, or is it more of an innate gift?
You know what? I honestly believe it's something that you can develop over practice, and I call it shadow work. It's almost like a 12-step program where you really look within yourself, why you do things that are negative, why are you envious, when you really look at yourself and where's your trauma, all that kind of stuff is the blockage of your intuition. So once you're able to remove the blockages you have there, I believe anybody also through practice of following your intuition, because it's hard to do because fear comes into play and anxieties and stuff like that. So basically being able to get those blockages out of the way, I feel like anybody can be intuitive to anything. As long as they keep their eyes open, they'll also find signs for many different things from people they've lost, or even just their spirit guides try to point them in the right way.
Having an open mind and keeping your eyes open, you can see that. Numerology is one of your specialties. Can you break down how a numerology chart is created or the insights it can reveal?
So basically, the way that it's created is through not just your numbers for your birthday. It's also each letter is given a numerical value, and you go through the vowels for certain things. You do consonants for certain things. You use all the letters for certain things. And what they tell you is a lot about your path in life, your personality. So there's a part of you that's called your personality number, but it's the part of you that you show to people. And then your true desire number is the part of you that you only really show to people that you trust. So there's the on-air version of you, and then there's the real-life version of you. And it's explained to you the reasons why you don't want to show certain parts of yourself to everybody. It also does have like your life path, and it'll go through, that number goes through what things might happen to you throughout the course and cycles of your life and stuff like that. So basically they tell you about your personality. They tell you about who you are and where you're going to go. That's where I see it for a chart.
If you change your last name, you get married and hyphenate it, does that change everything in your numerology, or does it stay the same path?
I go for maiden names. So like I did my neighbor's chart, and although she's married, I did her original, like her name that she was born with.
So you're
because
stuck with it.
Your numbers start at birth. You have to go by the person's birth name. But I never done anybody who's been married and then seen a difference from what it looked like before they were married. Might be actually, you never know.
Okay. Palmistry is another fascinating practice. What kind of information can you get from the lines and the shapes of someone's palm?
There's a lot you can get from palms. There's way more to it than what people think. You can definitely get how many marriages that you are going to have. It lets you know how healthy you will be throughout your life. It will let you know about your careers and if you'll have one or if you'll have 6. It lets you know if you're logical or if you're emotional. And it lets you know if you're nurturing or if you're more on the cold side. It lets you know if you are emotionally mature. That's just from the lines. Then there's other parts like squares, which means that you will be coming out of struggles. If you have triangles, it means that you have lots of struggles. So I don't know how they change over time, but they do. Squares and triangles can change from struggles to overcoming struggles. I think it's maybe how you use your hands. I don't know. I always do dominant hand. There's like the X in the middle of your hand, which means that you use your intuition properly. Then there's also mounds that can be under each person's finger, and they all have to do with different parts of your personality as well. There's islands, there's tassels, there's the X, there's the girdle line, there's the Apollo line, and all these different lines and different things mean success or different things about your career and your life and stuff like that. So palmistry is very much like numerology in a way where it tells you a lot about yourself, but in a way it's a little bit, with the lifeline, it's a little more comforting to be able to look at it and see it in a good shape. Marriages wise too, at least you know how many marriages you might have. Plus it also lets you know if you have special abilities that maybe you don't know that you have. So it brings different things forward. It depends on what your hand says, really. If I look at my own hand, it says that I'm going to have 3 careers before I retire, and I'm in my last career. I'm going to have one more career after this, but it's going to be short. But I worked as a server for 20 years, so the lines are really long. And then there's a medium-sized line and a tiny line. So that would explain that. And that would say to me, like if it's reading somebody else, it'd be like, you're going to have 3 careers. One's going to be long. You know what I'm saying? One's going to be medium and one's going to be short. Right. And in what sequence they're going to be. If you really look at your hand, you'll be able to see different little things coming around the lines, and they all mean things, like I said, with squares and triangles and tassels. And there's the X, there's the Venus girdle. It's lying underneath your ring finger. Yeah, so it's all interconnected into your personality, into kind of the past, present, and future almost.
Can those?
I could look at it and see that your lifeline's weak at the beginning of your life, and I could tell you that you were sick when you were a child, but then your health gets better. So that's what I mean by past.
Can the lines change then on your hand, or are they just set in stone?
I feel like that they can change. That's why I use the dominant hand, because we use that hand so much that within using it, it makes things change. So it can change, like I said, with the triangles, meaning you're going through struggles, and then squares, meaning that you are going to be overcoming those struggles very shortly. They are like little subsets of the major lines on your hands. So they can change from just doing work or anything like that, or moisturizing your hands, anything really. I don't know exactly how it changed it, but I've seen it change on my own hands. So
palmistry is a very extensive form of divination. I've always read tarot cards. I tried to go into palmistry and learn it, and it left me completely exhausted. So I've just put that on the back burner. But I wanted to know if you had a favorite tarot card, and why is it your favorite?
The Wheel of Fortune is my favorite card, and it's because it's for good luck. I also like the Empress.
Yeah, I like the Empress too.
Another area you specialize in is shadow work. Can you explain what shadow work is and why it's important for personal growth?
So we all have our shadow self, right? Which is like the part of ourselves that we don't like, we hide, we repress a lot. Your shadow self is the part of you that you have trailing behind you that has all of your trauma, all of the things you don't like about yourself, your insecurities, all of those negative things in your life that, like I said, create blockages and hold you down. And it's almost like a form of therapy in a way. really, you have to be able to be open to looking at yourself in a negative light, because obviously we do have negative aspects. And it's basically going through each thing per se that you don't like about yourself. Say, like for me, sometimes I get envious of people, and then I look at why am I envious of people, and I look at when did that start, and then it will come to the root of why I was like that. And like for me, I'm envious because a lot of people in their early 20s go out and they travel and they see the world. I regret not doing that, and that's why I'm envious of other people that have done that. And that is my own fault, and I have to learn to accept the fact that I didn't do that. I can't change the past, and I have to let go of that angry energy, I guess you could say, and forgive myself. I forgive myself because I wasn't looking at it from the big picture at that age, but I am now. So I had to forgive myself in order to love myself. So it's just basically going through the process of breaking everything down and looking at that shadow self and really just ending that, even
Cycle.
your negative patterns, your negative cycles, that kind of thing.
That helps heal.
Holy cow, I swear nothing else is going to happen. I swear.
Well, I was going to say, going through the shadow work helps you heal from your past traumas and your emotional blocks. Now, if anyone's interested in starting shadow work, where do you find the tools, or what exercises do you recommend?
You know what the best is? A lot of groups on Facebook. If you type in shadow work, if you go into the groups, they will have a lot of material that you can read that helps walk you through it. Plus a lot of people that can mentor you through it as well. Google is a good one if you're looking to do it. It's more of a private thing that you do on your own anyways. Some people will go into the support groups for information. Some will go in for support. Some will go in for mentorship. Those are the best ways to be able to do it and have help. If you want to privately do it, just go to Google and you will find tons of information about how to do it.
You've done so much in your career, from teaching tarot classes and speaking at universities. Can you share maybe a particularly memorable experience from a holistic retreat or a psychic fair or anything that you participated in?
One of the universities that I go to, I was doing some reading, and this person always came every time that I would go to do reading, but he had the funniest way of reading the cards, like shuffling the cards. He would slap them together, like he'd slap the cards and slap the cards and slap the cards, and he would continuously do it. And he just always found it so memorable because he comes back, he does it every time. It's like he's beating them up. I'm just like, I've never seen anybody shuffle cards like that before. He's just backing them. Hoping for the best answer possible. But he's just smacking these cards, and he does it every time. So that's probably my most memorable one, is just watching him do that, because it's not like he's wrecking them or anything. So I'm just trying to sit there with composure when I'm just like, oh, this is funny.
That is funny.
The nicest guy too, but it's just the way he shuffles the cards. You're like, who taught you how to smack cards?
You've also worked with top psychic apps. How has that shaped your reach or influenced your career?
That I'm able to do, which is very good with having children, whenever I am available to do it. So I go and turn my light on saying I'm available. That's where I found the people that were obsessed with psychics, is the app. So I try not to go on it overly too much so that doesn't happen. But that's where I have found the people that are the most psychic obsessed. But I've also found that people like to test you too, because you get 5 free minutes at the beginning. So they'll try to test you with certain things. So that's always interesting.
For someone who's completely new to divination, where do you think is a good place to start for them to start exploring?
Tarot cards, just because they open up so much And they offer so much insight into learning about divination that I find tarot cards the most explanatory, because once you learn tarot cards, it's so much easier to learn everything else, I find. So I would definitely say learning tarot, even just if you learn a little bit about it, it really helps open the intuition. It really helps you look at things in other ways. It helps you use your brain to connect the dots. So it's a good way to start. And then I find progressing from there. Maybe shadow work if you're having a hard time learning how to do this and you feel blocked from learning how to pick anything up. I would maybe say shadow work first, but tarot, if you're interested in learning, I would pick that up first and then go from there. You definitely don't want to jump into, say, you want to do spell work. You definitely don't want to jump in right away in doing that. You want to definitely learn the beginners and the basics of what everything kind of means. Astrology, maybe. Yeah, you know what? I'd say shadow work, astrology, or tarot. One of those three would be what I would try to learn first.
What are some of the most common misconceptions people have about divination or psychic readings?
That you worship the devil.
Yeah. Or that you know the lottery numbers.
Oh, yeah. That one, I get people all the time. But, you know, like, my children literally have had their parents not let them come play at our house because they think that I'm a devil worshiper.
Oh.
Because I read tarot cards. My daughter will just say, "Oh, my mommy reads tarot cards," and then, nope.
Oh,
or they're
that's
the
sad.
opposite, and they come over and they want their cards read. So it goes either way.
Oh, wow. And how do you handle situations where a reading doesn't immediately resonate with someone?
I redo it.
Have you ever had a situation where someone's come in and you felt like, oh no, I can't read this person, or I shouldn't read this person? A negative type of thing?
You know what? I get that, but when I book them, I'll talk to them a little bit. I usually obviously book people like a day or so in advance. And I will all of a sudden, like the day before it happens, get this horrible intuition, like I just shouldn't do this. Like when somebody tells you, just don't do this, then I will probably just tell them, I just don't feel like I'll be able to do it for you properly. And I think somebody else would be a better fit for you. And I'm like, honest, I say it as like nice like that. Like, I think somebody else would be a better fit for you, that kind of thing. But yeah, usually it's when I book them and a day later, all of a sudden I get like gut feeling of, oh, I can't do this. And I literally feel like I'm like glued to my bed and I can't get out because I can't do it. It's like such a strong feeling. I've always had, when something bad's going to happen, I get that feeling. And it's been since, even as a teenager, when bad things would happen and we would go out that night, I would get the same feeling. So that's how I know I can't do somebody, is by booking them in advance and having that little bit of time to think. All of a sudden, my gut will be like, no. Or if I'm on the app and I feel like we're not connecting, because that is a little different, I will say to them, I'm not going to charge you for the little bit of time we've talked. I just feel like somebody else would be a better fit for you. Like, I always use that. Somebody else would be a better fit, instead of saying anything negative to them.
What do you find most fulfilling about what you do?
I like doing the Induced Death Communication because I've felt that crazy grief, especially like today's the day I've been like that. My brain has been all over the place. Probably why this isn't working the best.
Maybe it's your dad.
But, he's trying to bug me. He liked to screw around. I won't use the F word. He liked to screw around with me a lot, right? Like as a jokester person. So yeah, when I'm able to get people to connect with loved ones that they've missed so much, and seeing their faces, like the last person I did it with was somebody I did a podcast with, and then I did it afterwards for them. And just a smile on their face was just, I just wanted to like hug them and be like, I'm so glad I was able to bring that smile to your face. I could feel his energy when I was talking to him, and I could feel the pain. So when we were done, I offered to do that for him, and he definitely got a lot out of it. And so that's why I like doing that. because I feel like that's truly helping people.
Yes.
So like I like doing the other stuff, but like answering some questions can be trivial, where at least with this, I know I'm helping somebody, and that's all I really want to do is help people. And so that's why I would say I get the most out of the induced death communication.
I love that. I totally agree with that. And you're being of service to people. And that's such a great karmic thing. Do you have any upcoming projects or events that you're excited to share with our listeners?
I do, but you guys are in the States. I do have a holistic healing fair coming up on March the 6th, where I will be doing readings and things like that. But I'm in Canada, in Ontario.
Oh, we have our Canadian listeners, so you can go ahead and let them know.
So it would be in Castor, Ontario at the fairgrounds on March 6th. It's the Holistic Healing Fair. We'll be there on Saturday, all day, free admission, and everything is all about healing and helping people with whatever they need. They might find some crystals as well, but lots of different healing practitioners and different healing methods. It'll be a good time.
Somebody like you who is such a devoted healer and somebody who just wants to serve and help people, I'm just dying to know, what is your sign?
What is my astrology sign?
Yeah.
I'm an Aries.
That is a good question. I didn't even think to ask that. Finally, what message or piece of advice would you like to leave our audience with today?
I always like to say this: make sure that you follow your intuition, even when you're afraid, because it is the only thing that is going to guide you. How I said, when it's telling me no, not to do something, follow that instinct. Make sure you listen to yourself. Don't let anybody else or any other feelings stop you. Listen to yourself, because it's guiding you in the right direction. So follow your intuition, no matter how hard that might be at the time.
Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your incredible journey and insights. And for those who are listening, you can find more about Jasmine and her work in the episode description. As always, thank you for tuning in to the Spirit Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and follow us on social media. Until next time, stay curious and stay spooky.
To the Spirit
Podcast.
Supernatural Science.
Aliens. Ghost.
Psychic. Mystic.
Spirit.
Divine Source.
Heaven. The dead. It's magic.